It's finally time, guys. This is that Quartersawn fir that we did earlier this year, and I've got a planer now. For better or worse, this was under 400 bucks from Harbor Freight. It's, I think, a DeWalt copy. Got it out of the box. This is what we've got here, and it's heavy. This is all cast parts, pieces, a little bit of plastic on the side here, but we'll see how it goes. Well, that was pretty straightforward. Got my dust collector hooked up. Very little to do to this thing. The instructions say, take your piece. I got a little piece of scrap red cedar here, nice and soft. Put it in the feed tray there and just bring the head down to touch the piece. Lock it all down. I'm gonna do a test run, see if it takes anything off. And I'm gonna turn it a 16th, bring it down 16th, and we'll take a nice 16th off and see how many times I gotta do that before I get a nice smooth surface. This is rough cut right off Fred's sawmill, so it might take an 1/8 or maybe even 3/16 to get a nice uniform smooth cut. That was cool. Here's our piece of cedar. I've got both sides done. Can you guys tell me what these little chip marks are here? Is that where the blade's pulling the grain out? They come all the way along. It seems like it has something to do right along the edge of this ring. There's a little line of them up and then back down. Same with this side. So I don't know if this is unique to cedar or it's just the way the flat sawn stuff, you're exposing the grain at just the right angle to pull little pieces of wood out. But it's super nice and smooth. I ran it through about an 1/8 each side, so this thing's about 7/8 now. So let's try some first, see how that goes. Here's our piece of fir. It's a little 1x4, roughly 3 or 4 feet long, rough both sides. And this stuff, like I said earlier, with Quartersawn, this is probably quarter here and then more like rift here where the rings come at about 45 degrees to the face. Unlike that cedar we did earlier that was flat sawn, this you're cutting perpendicular to the grain more or less. Well, that turned out just absolutely beautiful. There's a little bit of bug holes in this one out near the sapwood, but the heartwood here is nice and clean and clear. Really, really nice. I got it down to 7/8, so I could do both sides. And I don't know if this is stuff, again, from like where a tooth from Fred's blade went a little deep. I got this side really nice and smooth. It doesn't have any of those pulls like on the cedar. But oh, I just love taking old rough wood and turn it into this just beautiful, beautiful stuff. Well, we're gonna go big or go home here. This is a chunk right out of the heart of the tree, pretty much. The center was like right over here, so we've got nice, perfect perpendicular rings all the way across. This is about an 8-inch wide piece. It's clear all the way down. We got into the heart here a little bit farther down the board, but it's just absolutely beautiful stuff. I got to be careful with this because it's so wide I can't take off a whole bunch at once or I'm going to jam the planer. So I'm going to just go real slow, real easy with this one. We'll get it down to about 7/8. See how it goes. Oh man, I don't know how you get much better than that. Look at that grain. There's obviously a little bit of heart there on the right we can trim out. But there's a 6 or 7-inch piece there that's probably just about as clear as you're ever going to get anymore. Man, oh man, that is beautiful stuff. Well, here's a couple more fir that I did. It comes out really nice. I mean, the finish is really, really nice. You could hit it with 250 or 300 grit sandpaper if you wanted. I'm a little disappointed in these little black holes in the wood. because that's where the bugs have gotten in, and it's a little defect and stuff. And it happens right along the edge, probably 2 or 3 inches in from the bark. And so I don't know if that's a specialty characteristic or if I got to just trim that off and that's waste, and out of this 1x6 I get a 1x4. But you can see the finish. I mean, I've got some really nice stuff. I found it at the very last one, if you take like a 64th off, it makes a really nice smooth finish. It takes any little pulls or anything you got on there, takes them right out, and leaves you with a really good board face. I'm gonna go try some cedar and some hemlock and some spruce next. So let's put the fir aside now and try some of those other species. A couple pieces of hemlock here. This one has a few little knots and blemishes on it, but the one underneath here is like a 1x10 or something, and it's pretty darn clear. So I'm excited to see what this hemlock looks like. Well, the hemlock planed really nicely. These were a little bit thicker boards, so I took more passes with them. But I got 3 or 4 different kind of qualities. This one had a bunch of knots in it. And you know, there's probably a 1x2 right along this edge I can get, 1x2 or 1x3, but the rest is just, you know, utility. It's really not worth it. This one, nice and clear, but I'm real curious about these little black spots, guys. What do you think? Is that a defect and junk, or is that like super rare character that's going to be, you know, sought after by some of these wood guys? So let me know what you think on that. I usually get them down to about 7/8. I plane down on the face I like till it's nice and smooth, and then I turn it over and plane off what I can to get down to 7/8. So this is the face that was the B face for me, and I didn't quite get all of the curve stuff from Fred's saw off, but it's a pretty nice surface. It'll sit flat anyway. Here's our rough spruce, and I think spruce gets a bad rap. I think spruce is actually a pretty cool wood. It's really not worth very much if you're going to go buy it, and I don't know if you can find clear vertical grain spruce, but I'm going to make some. It's a really light wood, but it's very strong for its weight, and I've got some really big spruce in my property. One of its characteristics is it doesn't smell, and so a lot of the wood crates that are made for food are made from spruce. But let's see if we can shine this stuff up and make it look beautiful. And here's our spruce. It's probably comparable to pine. The rings on my spruce are a little bit probably farther apart than you want. They're probably not a quarter, but they're spaced pretty far apart because it grows really well on my site. And so you're not getting that super tight grained stuff like you saw in the fir, but it's beautiful wood. I mean, if you need some clear stuff, I'm sure it stains great. It's kind of whiter than fir. You can probably stain it any color you need. So what do I do with all my spruce? Is this stuff worth anything? Let me know. Leave me a comment below. Well, I've had $400 worth of fun already, and I've only done about a dozen boards. So, but now let's get to my favorite, Western Red Cedar. My wife is talking about building a sauna at our house. So rather than going to the store and buying $10,000 worth of cedar, let's mill up some, plane it down, get it tongue and grooved, and build a sauna. That'll be for a future video. For now, let's just get it planed down, see how it looks, see how it smells. Well, this is about half of what I got. I hope it's enough to build a sauna with. But it smells so good. Well, here's kind of the finished product. I've got them in a couple different categories here. My wife needs to make her decision. So I've got some wide boards here for the sauna. Or the other thing we talked about is ripping them down into like 2-inch, 2.5-inch boards, tongue and groove on each side, putting a little relief on the corner, and then when they match up, you get a really cool 2.5, 2-inch face. So I'm gonna take these home and she can make her decision on what she wants. But man, this cedar is just the coolest thing. It turns out so nice. It's a nice soft wood, smells amazing, and it's gonna make a beautiful sauna for us. Well, a few final thoughts on this planer. I'm no woodworking expert, and this is the first time I've ever run a planer, but it seemed to do a really good job for me. It can't take off very much because it won't pull it through the machine. So it'll take off a 1/16 if the board's nice and flat and straight, but if there's any little cut to it or anything, it tends to jam up in here. So you got to kind of take a 32nd off or a 64th at a time. I don't know how long the knives are going to last. I think this job is going to work a whole lot better with 2 people, where you have one person feeding the material, the other person make a stack at the end. You get 50 or 60 boards stacked up, ready to go. You set it to 1 1/8 inches. You run them all through. You reset it to 1 1/16 inches. You run them all through, and that way you're not fiddle screwing around with boards and 3 at a time. And I'm feeding and pulling and adjusting the thing every time. You just want production as fast as you can go. Another thing that I thought of while I was running this thing is I'd run one board on one side and another board on the other side to keep the knives wearing evenly. If you just keep running them on the left, they're going to wear out on the left side and they won't, wear evenly. But for 400 bucks, man, it can plane a lot of wood. It's not real fast. You're not going to, go into the cabinet making business with it. I don't think I'm going to get through all the wood I have here with this machine. But it's a great little machine to start, and it might get us through our sauna. Now I got to get a router and a router table, and depending on how the finish turns out overall, I might need to get a sanding table that I can run some 250, 225, 300 grit sandpaper, and I just put a nice buff finish on at the very end after the planer. So stay tuned for the sauna. My wife's going to make her decision, and usually it turns out to be the most expensive stuff is what she wants to go with. So I'm expecting that small, narrow 2-inch stuff, and we're going to just, end up running a bunch of boards. So that'll be a fun one. Thanks everybody for watching. We'll see you on the next video.